Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us here today. Nancy Sutley, Chair of the Council on Environmental Quality. And the reason we're here today is that in May, the Vice President asked the Council on Environmental Quality to work with key federal departments and agencies to come up with the best recommendations to increase the pace of energy retrofits in American homes and businesses and grow green job opportunities. The goal is to put Americans back to work in enterprises that upgrade America's buildings and increase their energy efficiency, reducing energy costs, cutting greenhouse gas emissions, and creating jobs. Over the past 4 months, we've worked closely with 11 departments and 6 White House offices to develop this Recovery through Retrofit Report. Working through this effort and with these agencies has allowed us to receive the perspective of a wide range of leaders throughout the federal government, some of whom are here today. While EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson could not join us today, I'd like to acknowledge all the work that she and her team have done. Under her leadership, the EPA has done a great job in getting their Recovery Act dollars to communities across the country. These investments are not only creating green jobs, but also making communities cleaner and healthier for their residents so that they can attract even more jobs and investments. When it comes to energy use in this country, the reality is that with almost 130 million homes in this country, they are responsible for more than 20% of our nation's carbon dioxide emissions, making them a significant contributor to global climate change. Retrofitting can reduce home energy use by up to 40% and lower greenhouse gas emissions, and not to mention save money. Home retrofitting helps reduce the load on our power plants, which help cut air pollution. And at the same time, retrofitting American homes enhances their values. Today, we are happy to report back with recommendations for action that will help achieve these goals. This report builds on the foundation laid in the Recovery Act to expand green jobs and business opportunities while saving energy and saving money. Beyond the Recovery Act, we want to make sure that the energy efficiency market will thrive for years to come. And to ensure implementation of the report's recommendations, we have established an ongoing Energy Retrofit Working Group under the Middle Class Task Force. This group is co-chaired by the Department of Energy, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Agriculture. The task force will track the progress of the report's recommendations and develop additional strategies to support home retrofitting, including recommendations for rental housing. The group will also operate as a single point of contact for implementation of this effort. Within 30 days, we'll submit an implementation plan to the Vice President and then report regularly on its progress. The working group will work to make sure that the Recovery Act investments are just the first step in creating a new market for energy retrofits in homes across the country. And now I'm very pleased and honored to introduce Vice President Biden, whose vision brought us together towards a single goal, and also he's been working very hard to improve the lives of middle-class Americans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you for your good work. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretaries Chu, Solis, and Donovan are all here, and Karen Mills, our administrator, Carol Bronner's down there. As was pointed out, Lisa can't be here today. She's out doing God's work, as my mother would say. And we also have some people here that I just was given credit for the vision of this task force. I strongly supported it, but the guy who really had the vision for the task force was Andy Stern talking to us. Andy, it's good to see you, and good for you. You still have Carol Berger working with you, because I know we'll succeed now. But here's the deal, or Ann, I should say. I said Carol. I went to school with Carol Berger. I'm going to be relatively brief because the people who are running this program are the people I want you to hear from. And let me begin with an overarching statement here. One of the things that the President and I wanted to do when we took office was, sounds a little bit silly and trite, but to try to make government work better. Just make it work better. Not complicate it, just work better. And practically. And the great thing about the cabinet the president assembled are a whole bunch of real practical people, smart people and practical people. So when I asked them to undertake this responsibility, I've been here for 8 presidents, and there are a lot of great cabinet members in previous administrations. But it would have been like pushing a rope, I suspect, saying, by the way, I want all of you to get together, and would you all sit down, would you all come up with an answer to my question? But they did it. They did it. So the first thing I want to recognize is not only the hard work, but just the practical, simple cooperation that got us to this point, and hopefully are going to produce something that is really good for the American people here. When President Obama established the Middle Class Task Force and asked me to chair it, he had one goal in mind, and that was to ensure that as we move the economy from recession to recovery, and we are, and we will, and it was inevitable, it's going to happen, that when we come out of this recession, the middle class comes out better positioned than it has the last 2 times that's occurred. Comes out better positioned than it did during the dot-com bubble when things, before they burst, boomed. Come out better positioned after the real estate bubble when they were booming before the burst. Better positioned middle-class people. When we ran, it's a very simple proposition, sort of the governing proposition of our administration as it relates to the economy, is we will judge whether we succeeded. You will all judge, and you should judge us independently, whether we did well or not. But internally, Barack Obama and Joe Biden will judge success or failure based upon whether or not people aspiring in the middle class get a shot to get in, and people in it get to stay. That's the bottom line for us. And so that's the goal of this task force, and really that's the goal of the entire administration. And today, with the leadership of the men and women behind me, we're going to take another important step, I believe, in that direction. The report we're releasing today, called the Recovery Through Retrofit, is a blueprint for creating jobs while also building the economy for tomorrow. Now, I know you use those trite phrases all the time in politics, the economy for tomorrow, but it's a simple, basic proposition. I don't know anybody, left, right, center, Democrat, Republican, Independent, who thinks we can possibly lead the 21st century with the energy policy we have, with the education policy we have, with the healthcare policy we have. And what we try to do in the Recovery Act is lay down not the total foundation, but the building blocks for what will be a new economy. What is this new economy going to be built on? Not another bubble. What are the foundations? What are the piers upon which we built, like we did after World War II? It was built on solid, it was built on granite, it wasn't built on a bubble. So we're not just creating jobs for their own sake, we're trying to create jobs here as a cornerstone for the 21st century economy. We're creating jobs literally of the future. Jobs that will not be able to be easily exported. Jobs you can actually raise your family on. Some of my labor friends out here, and I've talked about this before, you know, it's not enough the economy grows. The economy was growing by leaps and bounds at the turn of the 20th century. But it wasn't producing a whole lot of good jobs. A lot of people were doing very well. It wasn't producing a lot of good jobs. But we hope and we believe we can, with your help, use the Recovery Act as sort of jump-starting an engine that creates jobs that are well-paying jobs that people will be able to live decent lives in middle-class neighborhoods, send their kids to college, be safe, and be secure. And so we're doing all this. We think we can do it. And, you know, my dad used to have an expression. He says, great when conscience and convenience cross paths. Well, here's a place where conscience and convenience cross paths. We can better the environment, better the economy, better position ourselves to compete in the world, and create these jobs. And we're going to begin one of the tools to be used, not the only tool, is we're doing all this while reducing greenhouse gases and by stimulating private industry, virtually creating a new market for the most innovative companies in the United States to dive into. They're more than, as is pointed out, they're more than, Nancy, I think the number is 130 million homes. 130 million homes in America. most of which are not very energy efficient. The average age of a home in America is 40 years old. It uses about 20 to 40% more energy than it needs to use. Tens of thousands of families in America are paying considerably extra on their energy bills to heat or air condition their homes because it leaks, it lacks insulation, the design is faulty. The average homeowner in America spends between $1,500 and $3,000, depending on where oil prices are going to go or gas prices go, but that's what we're talking about now, per year. And then you'd be able to save. You'd be able to save a significant amount of that money by retrofitting, fixing leaks, upgrading windows, insulating crawl spaces, attics, that can amount to somewhere at a minimum between $300 and $1,200 a year. You get payback real quick on these investments. By making that investment, making that investment costs money. And a lot of people are hurting today. So you got to have the money. You know the old expression, you got to have money to make money. Well, you got to have money to invest in order to be able to save this money. And so what we're going to talk about here is combining all these elements. People don't make these investments now for a couple reasons. Number one, they don't know what they need. They don't know. I mean, you are a very sophisticated audience. But equally sophisticated audiences are not involved in government and politics. You ask them, what do you think your home needs in order to make it more efficient? Some of it's self-evident and obvious. You know, if the wind's whistling through the front door and through the windows, you know you need insulation. And most people don't understand exactly what they need and whether the investment they're going to make is worth the effort. So they don't make these investments because they don't know who to go to. They don't know who to call. They don't know who to call for retrofitting services, or if they get that information from a reliable source, they don't know how to finance the changes that are suggested. Often it can be very difficult to determine whether or not they'll recoup the value on their investment if they choose to sell their home. You know, we all know, because we've all been through it, those of us who are over the age of 40, you know what, okay, if I make this investment in a swimming pool in the backyard, I'm not likely to get it back, but if I make an investment in new bathrooms or a kitchen, I get it back. We know generically those things. Most people don't know whether or not if they really made their home significantly more energy efficient, are they going to recoup the value? Are they going to get it back when they sell the home? The report we're announcing today lays out a game plan for how to break down those barriers so people can make informed decisions. We're building off an unprecedented investment in energy efficiency that's contained in the Recovery Act. There's a lot of money put in that Recovery Act, and we got to invest it wisely. And so what we're doing here is, here's how it's going to work. Number one, we're going to provide consumers a home performance label measure. And a measure, kind of like a gold star, you know, when you're a kid, you know, you got a good paper, you got a gold star on your paper in kindergarten. Well, it's a lot different here. We're going to be able to the people who know what they're talking about, are going to be setting up standards here whereby you will be able to measure whether the investment you make and then made results in the efficiency that has been suggested. Kind of like Energy Stars for appliances. You go in to buy an energy efficient appliance. Homeowners who are planning to invest in energy efficiency improvements will have a way to determine whether or not the energy savings and the increased home value is real. And the performance level that they get will give the home buyers all the information they know that they in fact reach that performance level. And all they need to know in choosing, buyers as well, when you go to buy an energy efficient home. Any of you in the past who bought a home, particularly if you live in, other than a really temperate climate, very hot or very cold, what do you ask for? You want a copy of the air conditioning bills. If you live in the South, you want a copy of the heating bills. You want to know what you're in for. Just like, what are the property taxes? How much do I have to pay to live here? What are the school taxes? What are the energy costs? Well, you're going to be able to have a standard that will be the gold standard for everyone to be able to rely on. So when the home you're selling has this label on it that in fact is efficient by the standards being developed by Energy and by the cabinet, you'll be able to increase the value of your home as a consequence of that. It will be more saleable. It'll be worth more money. Number two, we're going to make it a lot easier for homeowners to borrow money for home energy retrofits. We're doing this by encouraging communities, and some are already doing this, by the way, without our help, as Nance can tell you. They've been ahead of the curve here. Communities and municipalities to give you the option to pay the expense of retrofitting your home, to pay it back in your property taxes. So let's say you got to go out there, and we're going to give them seed money, those who want to participate. And let's say you're paying $2,000 a year in property taxes, okay? I'm just make it easy. I wish it were that easy, but that easy. Well, and let's say in order you get this energy efficiency audit come in, using the standards that we set up, and they say if you do A, B, C, and D, you qualify, and what you got to do is you got to put in new windows. And the new windows, making it up, cost $10,000. Well, what you'll be able to do through a financing mechanism they use is borrow the $10,000 from that community or municipality if they choose to participate, and you'll pay it back in your property taxes. So instead of paying $2,000 back, it's like paying back the bank. The banks aren't lending the money now. You will be able to pay it back in your property tax. And the property tax will follow the home. So you sell the home, the person buying the home pays back that in there. And it's worth it to them to do it because the home is considerably more efficient. So we're going to spread the cost over a longer period of time. We're also making energy efficient mortgages widely available at lower interest rate so that homeowners who are retrofitting or buying a new home can add energy efficiency upgrade expenses to their home loans at the front end. That's when people usually make these judgments. That's when you usually make the decision whether you're going to, while you're borrowing the money in the mortgage, whether you're going to improve the heating system or you're going to lay down a new floor or you're going to add on whatever. And so Secretaries Chu and Donovan will be discussing all this in greater detail. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to advance a nationally recognized worker certification system so that consumers are confident that the retrofit outfit coming in, the guys and women doing the retrofit, are absolutely competent and will do the work completed and do it correctly and produce energy efficiency savings as advertised when the audit takes place. There's some great training models already in place, and we're going to work closely with labor and business to make a system like this work best for American families. Secretary Solis is going to speak about that. Look, the work is there. The work is there. With 130 million homes in the United States, generating more than 20%, as Nancy said, of our nation's carbon dioxide emissions, there's plenty of work to go around. Small Business Administrator Mills will going to speak about the potential for small business entrepreneurs. When all is said and done, we'll create jobs that reduce home energy use by up to 40%, lower greenhouse gas emissions by up to 160 metric tons if this works out all the way through the system. By the way, that's equivalent to taking 30 million cars off the road. 30 million cars off the road. So there's a lot of ways we can deal with mileage standards that have nothing to do with mileage. Ladies and gentlemen, but the side benefit will be you will save families a combined $21 billion annually in their energy bills if we do this the right way, while lessening our demand for foreign oil and preserving the environment to leave our children and grandchildren something closer to what we inherited. Not bad for a day's work if we can get all this done. The Recovery Through Retrofit Report lays out a plan agreed to by 11. Again, I'm going back to where I was before, by 11. I emphasize 11 different agencies and departments, including the Middle Class Task Force, with Nancy and her team making sure this all comes together. Again, Nancy, I want to thank you. And everyone here deserves credit for taking this on. A lot of times we don't get to highlight enough the way we're able to work together, the ways to coordinate among various departments, the ways that the government can truly be more responsive by coming together to serve in service of the greater good. And today we have that chance. Folks, this is what the Recovery Act was all about. It's about putting government in a position where above all else we're creating jobs. This is not going to create 1 million jobs overnight. But if we get this thing off the ground, which I'm confident we will, This is going to create good paying. By the way, green jobs pay on average more than comparable jobs in the same, doing the same system and doing the same kind of work. And this is a way in which we can begin to rebuild this economy. You know, there's an awful lot of people hurting out there, an awful lot of people out of work. You know, some of you guys have heard me say this. My grandpop used to say, there's a suburb of Scranton called Manuka. He said, when the guy at Manuka is out of work, it's an economic slowdown. When your brother-in-law is out of work, it's a recession. When you're out of work, it's a depression. Well, it's a depression. It's a depression for millions of Americans through no fault of their own. We're going to make sure that when we recover, and we will recover, that we'll come out of this a stronger nation, better prepared to lead the world in the 21st century with real live jobs people can raise their families on. And now we're going to hear from a few cabinet secretaries about each of their roles in bringing about this significant program. I apologize for leaving. I am due out of country, and I'm on my way to Warsaw, Poland, and to Prague and a few other places to deal with another energy issue, national missile defense. But all kidding aside, I am really proud of this team. And I think what we're about to lay out for you in more detail holds a great deal of promise. And I know the people assembled here know a great deal about all of this. And we're going to need your help. We're going to need your help. We're going to need your input. And so thank you very much. And I think am I supposed to introduce you, Mr. Secretary, next? Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We're here to make a historic commitment to energy efficiency through the Recovery Act. And the Recovery Act is a chance to show, our chance to show that the energy efficiency really works. And so in the next several decades, I believe that energy efficiency is our most powerful tool for reducing our carbon emissions and reducing energy bills. And it's still far too difficult for most families to seize that energy efficiency opportunity. So we're announcing today a retrofit ramp-up initiative. In this recovery through retrofit ramp-up, this is the idea. When you want to make energy efficiency improvements to your homes, most homeowners don't really know what information is really needed. They have to call up a lot of people. There's some uncertainty about the competence of the people they're talking to, so on and so forth. There's one issue regarding that. There's another issue regarding finance that the Vice President talked about. And then finally, you want to have several estimates, and so you might have 2 or 3 groups coming in. All of this adds to the time, the inconvenience, and ultimately the cost of the retrofit program. And so what we are trying to do in the Department of Energy is to pilot a new type of program. And it's a program in which an entire neighborhood, so for example, a block, gets together and they say, can we enlist a reasonable fraction, half, a third, 2/3 of the people on this block to say, let's all go in together, and then a single certified contractor then does an energy audit for each house, going from door to door. So the energy auditors go and they do the blower door tests and all those other things. They go to the next house, the next house, the next house. In comes another truck that blows in the insulation. There are people to do the ceiling. So they're not going back and forth. They're not multiple estimates and things of that nature, but this is a certified organization one can trust. And then there's an inspection afterwards that says, was the work done correctly using modern technologies like infrared viewers. So it's mass production retrofitting. And with this mass production retrofitting, we hope to bring the costs way down. We hope to make this into a neighborhood block party so that people, truly neighborhood block organizations will go to door and as one possibility and say, wouldn't you like to do this? Because if we sign up out of a block of, let's say, let's make up a number, 30 people, 30 households. If we sign up 15, we get a certain discount. If we sign up 10, we get another discount. If we sign up 25, we get an even deeper discount. So in this way, we're going to be using this in order to drive down the costs, to actually make this a social event, and help get this in the consciousness of American people. The hope is, with programs that you're going to hear about, I presume from Secretary Donovan, on how to finance these things, for example, as Vice President talked about, in putting it on your property taxes, the additional payment of this interest, which would be a mortgage-like interest rate, spread out over 20 years, would be less than the money you're saving from energy. So the homeowner will have, from a month to month, first no out-of-pocket expenses and a gain in their effective income. And so that, in addition to creating jobs that would stimulate the economy vis-a-vis the retrofit work, you also have homeowners now having more money in their pockets, which will go back into the economy. And so this is the idea of this. We hope it's self-sustaining. If you think about the weatherization program for low-income housing, it's $5 billion. If you assume an average cost of $5,000 for weatherizing a particular home, that does 1 million homes. Okay, what about the other 129 million homes that need to be retrofitted? And so this is a way of getting something that's largely self-funded or totally self-funded that can actually sweep across the country. And there are additional programs we're now cooking up in terms of commercial buildings. But before I hand it over to Secretary Donovan, are you next? Secretary Solis? Donovan? Whoever. I just wanted to point out that this program is the brainchild of Kathy Zoy, who's the Assistant Secretary of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. She's over there. Wave your hand, Kathy. And it's got the enthusiastic kibitzing of Undersecretary Christina Johnson and myself. And so, so she has her hands full of us sticking our noses into her, saying, "Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that?" And she's been very gracious in listening, pretending to listen to us. But anyway, so those are my brief remarks. Secretary Solis, your turn. Okay.
Good morning to all of you, and I also want to thank our Vice President, Joe Biden, for inviting us all here today and bringing us all together. You know, he really has done a lot to help us focus in on how important it is to make these investments in our clean energy future that will help secure America's energy supply, but will do so much more to help promote economic activity, stability, and also empower our diverse communities. These jobs that will be created, green jobs, provide an opportunity to rebuild our neighborhoods, and in a more equitable fashion, one that is inclusive of all Americans. And you and I know there are many people that have been left behind in the last few years. In May, the Vice President challenged us to deliver a plan to create jobs while building the economy for tomorrow. And at our Department of Labor, the economy of tomorrow means investing in our nation's greatest resource, and that's our human resource, our workers. People want to work, but they want good-paying jobs. Good jobs, in my opinion, are jobs that will support a family by increasing incomes and narrowing the wage gap, jobs that are safe and secure, and give people a voice at the workplace through the right to organize and to bargain collectively. Jobs that are sustainable, that export products and not paychecks, and jobs that will rebuild and restore a strong middle class. Jobs in the clean energy economy can be good-paying jobs, as was stated by the Vice President. They can pay upwards of 10 to 20% more in salaries. And as Secretary of Labor, I'm working hard to ensure that everyone has access to the needed training that's appropriately needed for these new jobs. And at the job training component, I want to say that we're looking at developing career ladders. So it isn't just a dead-end job. It doesn't mean just installing something, but continuing in the progress to learn new skills, new technology, and really upgrade our workforce. And in June, our Department of Labor announced a grant competition of $500 million in Green Jobs workforce training that will provide new partnerships and the quality of training needed to get into the clean energy economy. And as a part of the recovery through retrofit, we'll continue to work with my colleagues here in the administration and with all our community stakeholders. Workers have to know that they're receiving training that leads to good jobs and not a dead end. And employers must know that the training that is received by the workers is relevant to the work and to their business. And homeowners looking to retrofit their homes must be able to trust that those that they're hiring will do the right job and the quality will be of the highest standards. Through the Recovery Through Retrofit program, we will meet the needs of workers, employers, and homeowners. And we know that many excellent training programs already exist. I've had the pleasure of visiting many of them throughout my travels in the last few months. I've run into folks in New Jersey, Miami, Los Angeles, West Memphis, and Arkansas. And they have model training programs that are currently offered by our labor unions, by apprenticeship programs, employers, and our community colleges. So I look forward to working with all of you in partnership and hope that we can continue to move our agenda forward for a clean environment and for secure jobs for our working families. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Solis, all my colleagues here. Wonderful to be with you today. And I'm very happy that HUD has been able to play a very important role in this Recovery Through Retrofit initiative to address systemic barriers in our housing and financial markets that today limit the ability of property owners to make investments in residential energy efficiency. And I again want to thank also the leadership of the Vice President on this incredible work that's been done. He said 90 days, and in 90 days we have come together, 11 agencies, as you've heard about, to produce this report. One of the things he talked about earlier is that we have 130 million homes in this country that need to be paid attention to. In particular, 70% of those homes were built before current codes, energy codes, were in place. So think about the scale of this effort. That's really what Recovery Through Retrofit is about. We have begun to do this work. We have so many communities around the country that have begun to do innovative things. The ability that we have as a federal government is to help take those initiatives to scale, to really get to the scale that's necessary to deal with this problem among the tens of millions of homes that were built before current energy codes. What I want to talk about today is how do we get to the financial mechanisms that are necessary to make this retrofit happen. And it's really two key things that need to happen. First of all, we need to have better information available to consumers and to the market so that this isn't just about the Recovery Act, which has begun this process, and federal funding. It's about the market taking over and helping to move energy efficiency forward with no cost to the government and, in fact, with a net benefit to consumers. I've worked in the public sector, but also in the private sector as a lender, and I know that the only way that this can happen is when consumers have the information that they need to be able to make individual decisions about the right energy efficiency for them. That means that we have to develop the tools to give them that information. When you go and purchase a car today, in the window of that car is a number that tells you how energy efficient that car is. There is no similar process available for homes today. And so a key part of making this happen is the incredible efforts that the Department of Energy and EPA have put together to get to an assessment system, an audit that will be relatively low cost, and most importantly, will accurately predict the energy savings that can come from retrofit of a home. Just like the sticker in the window of that car, that kind of easy-to-use information can help consumers make decisions that will drive energy efficiency. That's critical for the second point that is so important, which is to develop financing mechanisms around that information. Today, if we could help lenders understand with real confidence that there will be savings of a certain amount on a home, they will be willing to lend against that. And most importantly, given the important role that HUD plays today in the home finance market, FHA, part of HUD, represents close to a third of new homes financed over the last few months. When you combine that with the important role of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, we're talking about over 95% of all new mortgages in the market today have a role that the federal government is playing during this crisis. If we can get the standards in place that can make lenders confident that savings will lead to, that retrofit will lead to savings, we will get mortgage capital, private capital, financing this so that instead of a consumer having to take $5,000 or $10,000 out of their pocket, they can add it to their home and actually save money in the long term. So what we are doing is absolutely critical in terms of providing information to consumers and to the market that will then allow lending tools to take off. And we need to make sure that those lending tools, in addition, are better designed, that they lower lending risks and transaction costs. We can do that through standardization. We can streamline loan processing and encourage broad secondary market participation in these programs. As I said earlier, to meet these objectives, we've brought together all of the critical agencies, and I do want to particularly thank Peter Swire from the NEC, who is here today, for his incredible work around the financial aspects of this process. So thank you, Peter, for all your work in getting us here. The two key programs that are part of this announcement today, first, there's the energy efficient mortgage. You heard the Vice President mention it. If there's a cost of $5,000 to upgrade a house that will produce $10,000 in savings over time, then as I've said, the perfect tool to realize those savings is a mortgage. The energy efficient mortgage isn't new, but the ones that we have available today simply aren't responsive to the needs of today's consumers or lenders. Under Recovery through Retrofit, the energy efficiency mortgage will undergo a retrofit of its own. HUD will use a portion of our Energy Innovation Fund to introduce market-based enhancements. We'll work with the housing industry, as I said, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and state and local governments to increase awareness and address market barriers, and work with, and this is very key, the home appraisal industry to develop guidelines that ensure appraisals reflect energy efficiency. The second program I want to touch on, the Vice President also mentioned this, is PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy, which permits property owners to request municipal financing for energy retrofits or renewable energy systems through a special tax assessment on the property. Under Recovery through Retrofit, HUD will work with state and local governments to recommend standardized underwriting criteria and safeguards to protect consumers and minimize financial risks to homeowners and lenders. HUD will also facilitate the collection of data and help measure PACE performance to build market confidence and ensure the adoption of more uniform and universal practices. Lastly, we will also be working with the White House, DOE, and EPA to develop additional strategies for retrofitting multifamily rental housing. Through the Recovery Act, we are already investing billions of dollars in HUD's own inventory of public and assisted housing for energy efficiency improvements, and have been working with Steve Chu and his team at the Department of Energy to lower barriers to the use of weatherization funds in this housing. We want to make federally assisted housing a leader rather than a follower when it comes to energy efficiency. And so this partnership that we've announced today is an important step forward, encouraging innovations the markets will respond to, saving families money, and sending a clear signal that the time has come to make clean energy an engine of economic growth in our homes, businesses, and in our communities. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Secretary Donovan. Thank you all. I'd like to thank the Vice President as well as the whole team that's here. We're here to talk about retrofitting houses, but also about building the small business structure that's going to create the jobs in this sector. Today we know that half of Americans who work own or work for a small business. And we know that small businesses drive most of the job creation in this country. And we know that, as in the past, they're going to lead us out of this recession and into recovery. At the SBA, the Small Business Administration, we have had success in the Recovery Act in delivering over $12 billion in loan support to small businesses so that they can grow and take on more people and create more jobs. And we've also, with the stimulus, been able to put billions of dollars through federal contracts to small businesses. We're very pleased that a number of these small businesses have specialized in making our communities more energy efficient. We've already been able to approve millions of dollars to energy consulting firms, to firms that specialize in weatherization and green construction. Some use wind and solar to increase energy efficiency in homes and businesses. And we've helped a number of them go forward with our Recovery Act funds.
Now, with this initiative, we are going to be able to help even more homeowners save money on energy bills and create good small businesses that create good-paying jobs in this green sector. A second thing that we do at the SBA is that we have over 14,000 affiliated counselors across the country working with entrepreneurs and small business owners. And in conjunction with Secretary Solis and the Department of Labor, we're going to be doing workforce development and also entrepreneur training in order to help small business owners find and understand the business opportunities in areas like retrofitting. We have over 68 offices, and all of our small business development centers and all of our SCORE counselors who offer this advice actually for free. We're going to let them know how the SBA can help them with training, finding workforce, finding the capital, so that they can lead the way. We expect that through this effort we will not only have more energy-saving homes, but that we'll have an entire sustainable supply chain of small businesses working in this area on into the future. I think this is a win-win for small businesses, for local communities, for homeowners, and it will create important, good-paying jobs as we go forward into this recovery. Thank you very much all for being here and for being part of this effort.